Hello, everyone, and welcome along to the latest edition, another new week here on Betting Weekly Game Bet Match. I'm Nigel Seeley, and I'd like to say joining me is our senior ATP Tour handicapper, it's Sean Calvert. Now, before we go, Sean, this is not one of those fancy green screens behind me. This is actually real. You can hear the glass of the window.
I think there's someone moving about downside behind you. Actually, no, that was your reflection. No, carry on.
Well, this is the view from behind me here in my hotel room in the Bellagio.
Look at that.
You see that little green bits there, Sean? Little green. That's the this time in 2 weeks' time. That's the finishing line for the Grand Prix. So the The green bit there is the makeshift grandstands, and that's where be the finishing line of the Grand Prix. And if you want to take this room, I know you've had a good tennis season. If you want to take this room for that, that's $20,000 for the night, Sean.
$20,000 for one night.
For one night for this room for the Grand Prix. Do you want it? I can get a mate's rates if you want it.
What, can you get it for 19,800 or something?
Off, yeah. That's what it
I'm
is
all right.
To get that view.
You're right. Yeah, I'm not a massive fan of F1, but I think that's a bit out of my price range, to be honest with you, mate.
Well, anyway, we haven't caught up since I've been out here. Obviously, we're supposed to do a podcast last week, but obviously travelling over here, and obviously there was sort of scheduling last week in Paris was an absolute disaster. So much tennis, all the matches going to the distance as well. Very long tournament, seemed like a long week, but inevitably the tournament was won by Novak Djokovic, who again sensationally just produced some unbelievable tennis in testing circumstances for him. What do you make of it? We can't keep referring to him the words. There's no much words to describe the player what he is, but another sensational form of Djokovic.
Yeah, partly it's just mental, isn't it? Mentally so strong. He could have tapped out against Talon Griekspoor. He could have tapped out against Holger Rune. I mean, you have to wonder how much he exaggerates things. It's always something we say about Djokovic because he was going on about how he'd not been off the toilet for about the previous 12 hours before he played Griekspoor, and there was always some sort of physical element that it's almost like he has to create a situation or maybe exaggerate a situation and then overcome that situation. And that's what kind of drives him on. And what can you say against Holger Rune? I mean, after the second set, Rune was absolutely dead, wasn't he? Once again with Holger Rune, he had cramps, didn't he? And I don't know whether you saw it, but Djokovic sort of walked off fresh as a daisy, sort of laughing to himself and shaking his head, having seen what was on the other side of the net. And this is a 36-year-old guy with so many matches and years behind him. It's incredible what he's doing right now at this age. Yeah,
amazing. I faded him against Holger Rune, faded him against Rublev, had opportunities to cash out, had opportunities to win the match as well, but it just sensational at the end of his career. He doesn't need the money, doesn't need the ranking points. He's won everything there is in the game, but to keep doing that. And obviously he heads to Paris, and nothing really changed. We spoke about Paris in Turin. Heads to Turin. Yeah. We spoke about the race for Turin, the motivation for players to get that final 8 spot, but it was as we were. And a week from today, we'll be talking about the action in Turin. But the final tournaments this year aren't as glamorous as the setting behind me, and that's an understatement of the year. We have two ATP Tour 250 events this week, and they're pretty shocking, aren't they, Sean?
They're not great. I mean, I'll be honest. They were not likely to be because, I mean, let's take Sofia, for example. That wasn't even supposed to be on the tour this year. Its swan song was supposed to have been last year, but they brought it back as Tel Aviv got cancelled. And there was a lot of withdrawals. So big problems there. And Metz, they always struggle to have to get crowds. I mean, I could go on. I could spend the whole show actually going on about how they shouldn't be playing tennis at this time of year, and they certainly shouldn't be doing it indoors in these little tournaments. Sofia's basically come off the bench to replace Tel Aviv. It did have, at one stage, it had Holger Rune as top seed. He withdrew, and then they said they had Zverev, and then he withdrew. Both of those guys withdrew because they don't need to play this week because they'd both just qualified for Turin. I think they took the 7th and 8th places off the top of my head, so they have no need to play this week. So Sofia's draw was really, really late coming out because they didn't know who was going to be playing, who was going to be the top seed, and then there was more withdrawals. There's been so many withdrawals this week. The draws have been rejigged, and it's and the other side of that is Metz started early. So Metz, as we're talking, has already started. I've actually already had a losing bet this week, believe it or not. The show's not even started. I took Arthur Cazot at 50-1 in Metz, took a real punt on him, and he made a real mess of it against who was it he was playing? Herbert. Wasted a double break lead in the first set. Tiebreak ended up losing. So it's not been a great start. It's a bit messy, shall we say, this week.
Let's have a look at the tournament. Let's start with Metz. Let's start with Metz. The tournament's already started. We've got some outright prices here. And obviously, these prices are subject to change. As we said, we're recording this on Sunday. The tournament has already started Sunday, so this will be going live for Monday's matches. But as we currently record it, Alex de Minaur is a favourite at 5-1. Humbert is 5-1. Bublik, another joint favourite, at 5-1. Kachanov is plus 550. Van der Zandschulp, who showed a little bit of signs of improvement last week, he's 10-1. Dominic Thiem, 14. Wawrinka, 16-1. I mean, you would have thought that he would have been the years gone by, a Grand Slam champion in a tournament like this, and Dominic Thiem, Grand Slam champions in tournaments like this at 14 and 16-1. They may be popular plays. Sonego, the Italian, 16-1. Giron, 16-1. And Barrère, 20-1. Now, as you can see from that's the list of the top 10 or so in the betting. It's not going to take much winning this week, and you can't rule out people further down the list as well. You've got the draw. The draw has been rescheduled, as we say. There's players in action. Where is the value in the draw? And what you've seen from the tournament today, and what they actually have seen today, what the conditions like here in France?
So this is one that's been moved in the calendar from September to the end of November. It's a bit of it tends to be moved around a lot. This one, they play on a slam court indoor hard surface, and they have been using Artengo balls, which were described last year by Michael Emer as the worst ball on tour. Nobody else uses them, was his description. So if they're still using those Artengo balls, they're a bit dead. They're not the best. There's a slight hint of altitude here, 167 meters. I watched the match today, as I said, Humbert against Cazaux, and it looked like one of them courts where it looks quite quick off the serve, but then when the rally develops, it doesn't look that quick. It looks more of a medium-paced surface. Last year it was medium-paced, 81% holds, 71.3% first serve points won, which is down on previous years. It used to be pretty quick here. It looks like another one that they've systematically slowed down over the last 4 or 5 years, but still features a lot of tie breaks. 47% of the matches on average have featured a tie break. Last year, even though it was slower, 54% of the matches featured a tie break. So plenty of breakers usually in Metz. Not normally a fabulous week, kind of an average week for underdog backers. 32% of the underdogs win in general. And as far as the trends are concerned, only one number one seed has won this since 2012, and that was Hubert Hurkacz in 2021. 2 qualifiers have made the final here in the last 5 editions. And last year, the aforementioned Bublik and Lorenzo Sonego were the finalists. Just looking at the draw, you haven't got it, so I'll just quickly break it down. The top half is where Bublik is, alongside Hugo Humbert. They're the top seeds. You would think, we'll talk about Sonego in a minute, because that's one of the matches that I'm going to talk about. I mean, who could say with Bublik? He made the final here last year. Does he fancy? He was moaning last week in Paris, wasn't he? He played, I can't remember who he played. He played, I forget who it was, but he was complaining that it was, I think it was Dimitrov, actually. I think he was complaining that it was a 9 a.m. start and it was too early for him. And he said, oh, they shouldn't be playing at this time. So, who knows with Alexander Bublik? Would you back him as tournament favourite about 5-6-1? I certainly wouldn't. As I said, I took a chance on Cazaux at the bottom half of the draw. He's unfortunately lost already to Humbert. I mean, looking at the other seeds in the bottom half, Altmaier, you wouldn't have thought so indoors. Kachanov and de Minaur are the obvious ones, but are they motivated? They're not going to make Turin. De Minaur's still got one eye on Davis Cup, I should imagine, but I can't think he's going to want to exhaust himself this week in Metz. Stanislas Wawrinka, who you mentioned a few minutes ago, he's been complaining that he's absolutely shattered. I'll mention that in a few minutes as well. So the only one I sort of think might do something is Alexander Shevchenko. He's around about 25-1 or so. He's been improving a lot lately. It could be enough potentially for him to go deep in a tournament like this, but it does rely a lot on the likes of Kachanov and de Minaur not really fancying it, which I don't know, because Kachanov has missed quite a lot of tennis this year. I think Kachanov will probably be up for it, but who could possibly say? If you the bottom line is, if you're looking at value now that Cazaux's gone out, I would suggest maybe take a bit of a chance on Shevchenko each way, but it's just a lean for me, because this is not a pleasant draw at all, to be honest.
Yeah. It's definitely these tournaments should come with a public wealth warning for sure.
Oh yeah, you've got to be very careful.
Very careful with your betting here. Look at the bets. Obviously, keep your stakes very, very small because it is the last tournament of the season, the regular season, which is the final time that we'll be talking about an ATP tournament before the tour finals. It's the regular season. So, well-deserved rest coming up for you, Sean. I know that anyway. But this tournament, so we're not going to have any. I thought Khachanov at plus 550. I know that he's not playing that great, but the fact that he's missed a lot of the season, he will probably become a bit of motivation. I was quite surprised that he was considered a less likely winner than Dimir, Humbert, or Bublik. So I thought just looking at the odds without delving into the draw, I thought Khachanov at plus 550, because if he was fit and he was playing a lot of tennis and regularly, he'd be a clear favourite this tournament. So but I haven't seen the draw because it changed and I haven't had a chance to look at it. So Khachanov for me, but very careful. But Shevchenko at 25-1 in a tournament like this, you might as well throw a few darts at some big prices. So that's Metz, which isn't very inspiring. And unfortunately, we go to Bulgaria now, to Sofia.
Do you want to do the matches in Metz?
I'm going to do the matches. I was going to do them both at the end because do like
that. That's fine. That's fine.
No, that's fine. Listen, it's the last show. We're going to go a bit rogue. And let's do the matches. We've got two matches here in Metz we want to talk about. The first match we're going to talk is Giron against Sonego. We mentioned Sonego in the outright market. Sonego is the number 6 seed. He is a slight favourite against the American, minus 110. Giron is minus 113. They've never met before. It's the first time they've played in the ATP Tour. The handicap here is 1.5, but it's not really a 1.5. It's a pick-em game, but that's where you go to the BetRivers website. You can move that to any one you want to move the handicap to, but it's 1.5. But really, it's a close match. The handicap is pretty irrelevant there. And the total games are high, 23.5, very high for a first-round match, really. Giron, Sonego, 23.5. What do you think about this one? Again, motivation is questionable for both of them. Sonego, a slight favourite. Do you agree with that? Not much real on the head-to-head to go for, and both of them very evenly matched on this season so far.
Yeah, Giron was favourite when they originally priced this up. And I've taken Sonego here. I just feel like Sonego will be the more motivated guy out of these two. He's defending the title here that he won last year. It was played in a different time of the year. It was played in September, but he still won the title here. So you would think, the good feelings when he comes back here will return. And, everyone wants to do well when they come back to defend a title. And he's still got work to do this year. As I said, the Davis Cup finals. I imagine he'll be involved in some capacity with Italy. And obviously, I think the advantage is for the European players against the Americans at this time of year. I've mentioned it before. I'm not keen on backing American players this late in the season. Giron's the only American man playing in Metz, and he looked absolutely done last week. I watched a few minutes of his match against Humbert in Paris from my 13 euro seats, which were about 6 miles away from the court. But even from there, I can see that Giron he's played a lot of tennis lately. He looked really kind of lackluster. Just looking at the stats, if we look at the last 2 seasons, 2022 and 2023 indoors at main level, very, very slight advantage for Sonego, purely on the basis that his win rate is slightly better, 56% compared to 53%, because their service points won and return points won totals are the same on 101. But I just feel like this week of the season, it's not really that much about statistics anyway. It's more about who you feel is going to be up for this and who isn't. And I feel like Sonego will be, and I feel like Giron probably won't be. So it's as simple as that to take Sonego here. 1.91, I think he was with BetRivers.
Yeah, brilliant breakdown there. And, the defending champion, the points, Davis Cup to play. He needs to be peaking well for the Davis Cup, and a good run here to defend those points against the American coming to the end of the season. And a tournament in Europe as well. So there you go. I didn't have an opinion on the match now, Sean, but you've convinced me to have a little bit of opinion. But like we say, be very careful. It's the last tournament of the year, and keep those stakes to a minimum. So just a one unit. As you can see from the unit stakes we've had this year, we've had a very, very good season. Remember, if you are playing on this match, you can live stream the match on the BetRivers website on your tablet or your mobile device, or whichever preferred methods you want to watch to place the wager on. The final match in Metz, only 2 we're looking about. Van der Zandschulp is minus 250 up against the Frenchman Van Assche. Last week, we saw in France, the Frenchmen had a terrible record in Paris. I don't know, something about the French players in France. They don't rise to the occasion. Even the French Open, they have an awful record. But Zandschulp is a heavy favourite here, -250. Van Assche cost us last week. Are we going to go and help bet him again? I've given up on these people. I've given no second chances is my motto for next season. +195 here. The spread is 3.5. And the total is 21.5. I'm guessing that you're going to give Van Assche another chance at the price, +195. But last week I was very, very upset with his performance, Sean, and he will not be holding any of my money.
I was very upset with him once he'd got to a set and 3 love and 1.06 in play. Yeah, I was upset with him then for sure. I think it's very difficult for these French players because the crowd. I don't think they help them sometimes. All the booing and stuff, and they're not the best crowd in the world. I'll be perfectly honest. It's not. I can't imagine as a French player, if I was a French player playing in Paris, I'd be pretty nervous as well. I think that's a big problem for some of the French players. But on this, it's a smaller tournament in Metz. There's not so much spotlight on it. Van der Zandschulp looked absolutely shattered against Rublev in Bercy. He had to play 5 matches last week, so he had to come through qualifying. Van der Zandschulp. He's another one that still has Davis Cup to come. I just feel like Van Assche might be should be the more motivated here. I watched Van der Zandschulp a few times last week. We bet him, didn't we, against Tommy Paul, and he just about scraped past over the line against an exhausted Paul it was a dreadful match. I was watching most of that in the airport. Actually, it wasn't great.
Should have won that so much easier. We should have been done in straight set.
The pair of them, I think they had about 28 break point chances between them and converted about 4. It was not great. As I said, Van Assche was close against Jerry last week, obviously led by that set and a break. If he plays that level again, I think he should be at least competitive here. If we look at what he's done at main level this season, in 2023, he's played 24 main level matches this season, and he's won a set 16 times. He's won at least a set 16 times. So 67% of the time he plays at this level this season, he's won at least a set. So if I was betting in this one, I would be probably backing Van Assche +1.5 sets. I think that was about 1.73 Bet Rivers earlier on. I'm not sure if that line has changed, but I think that's the way to go here. I think Van der Zandschulp's somewhat coming to the end of his energy levels. Although it's difficult to tell with him. He looks like that when he's fresh as a daisy, so hard to say, really.
Bet Rivers have about 28 different markets available to bet on. Check them out. There's so many different markets. If there's bets you've never had on the market, check the market out. And there'll be an explanation of how the market works on the information button next to the wager, the market you want to play on.
I'm just going to briefly mention one more, if I could. Just very go on. Very briefly, just about Stan Rowinka, because we touched on him earlier on, didn't we? He did say in Basel, which was a couple of weeks ago now, he said, and I quote, "I feel that for the past few weeks I've been very tired, broken even," was his words. And those comments changed the market of the match that he played against Dominic Thiem. It made him underdog. And if you remember, that match finished about 2:30 in the morning. Another one of those classic Bercy matches that finished ridiculously late. He's only won one of his last 6 matches. He said he's exhausted. So I looked to see if his opponent would be able to do something. And I came up with Zapata Morales, who's dreadful indoors, and he's retired from his last 2 matches with the same knee injury that he's had for a while. So that's just an aside. If you were thinking of betting in the Wawrinka match, you've got one guy who says he's broken and another one who seemingly is broken. So that's where we're at.
I think those quotes for Wawrinka may not be, we probably can't make a case for Zapata Morales, but it's definitely in round 2. If he gets through that match and he's a favourite, or we're going to bear that in mind for Wawrinka's chances in the tournament when he gets to the latter stages. So a little bit of nugget.
Just a bit of extra info, that's all.
Yeah, well, that's what we need. This was all about getting the info on here. Just one quick little question for you, Sean. I mean, obviously it's the end of the season. We've talked about motivation for these players. We're talking about players having long years, they've had an unbelievable long season. Well, I mean, we're exhausted and we haven't even picked up a tennis racket and traveled on the travels that we do. What these players do week in and week out is insane. But you're obviously an underdog better from your strategy on tennis betting. Is these tournaments very high for underdog bettors? You would presume that if you bet the underdogs in this tournament blind, you should cash, I would have thought, given where we are in the season and the players taking part. Is it something that has proven to be that? I know that they've played at different times of the year, but traditionally in the last tournament of the season, is it something that you sort of focus on looking for more underdog value than you would do in, say, the middle of the season?
Not really, because I mean, it depends on what's happened in the past. I mean, Metz hasn't always been an end of season tournament, so it's difficult to look at that as an end of season tournament. And Sofia hasn't always either. It was played in September in 2022, September in 2021, November in 2020. So it's not always been an end of season tournament. But I would look at what's happened in previous years. If there was a tournament that was being played in this same week every single year, I would certainly look at that. As I said earlier, only 32% of the underdogs win on average in Metz. I'm just looking at Sofia now. 31% in Sofia. So very, very average. Certainly no more than the average tournament. So that hasn't proven to be the case. And if you were talking about betting underdogs blind, I've got that info as well. Sofia, you would be in a loss if you'd backed every underdog blind in the last 7 editions, sorry. And Metz also have that here somewhere. Again, you'd also be out of pocket as well. So yeah, it's not.
I just think that the scheduling now coming towards the end of the season probably gives it a higher chance of that cashing with motivation. And we've got some decent favourites here, like -250. Zandschulp, for example, -250. If that match was played 8 weeks ago, it'd be -250. The market hasn't factored in much for the fact that it's the last tournament of a long season. But I'm happy with that. I wasn't going to back Van Assche, Sean, but
it's just a lean. What? It's just a lean. Don't worry. It's just a lean.
Well, just because it's the last tournament of the year, I'm betting the underdogs. I'm going to do it. So just the one official pick at Metz, Sonego.
Just a small bet on Sonego. Yeah, this is not a week to be going mad. So sometimes you do, even the underdog winners that you do get, sometimes they're a bit peculiar, and it's just because the favourite isn't really trying or is injured and he doesn't really want to stretch himself. So sometimes you do get some underdog winners, but they're ones that you wouldn't necessarily expect.
Sonego the bet at Metz. Now we're moving across Europe to Bulgaria, to Sofia. Now, if you thought Metz was bad, let's have a look at the runners and riders in Sofia. It's Manarino who did the business for us. Was it last month or the month before? A 6-1 shot. Jack Draper, absolutely struggling through injuries. The Brit, he's the joint favourite. Shows you how weak the tournament is. 6-1. Jan-Lennart Struth, another player who's returning from injury to no form at all. 7-1. Musetti, you wouldn't expect the Italian to be very strong in these conditions. Plus 750. Then you've got the sort of the journeyman of the tennis. Well, Kekmanovic, he's in every tournament. Kekmanovic, he must be exhausted.
He's injured as well.
He's in every tournament. He must be injured.
That's why he's injured.
Kotov in 12, Popper in 14, Fuchsovic, another journeyman who's in every single tournament.
Another one who's always injured.
O'Connell 14 to 1, and Marozsan at 14-1. So really, what you got to do here, you've just got to mark every single one that you want to fade, and you're probably only left with like 2 people who can win the tournament.
It's not pleasant. It's not a pleasant draw, is it? I've spent quite a long time looking at this draw, and I'm still none the wiser, really. Let's just talk about the conditions. As I say, this was brought back onto the tour after Tel Aviv got cancelled for obvious reasons. It used to be played on acrylic on wood surface that was on the quicker side last year, but with 84% holds and 74.3% first serve points won. But they've changed it again, presumably because they only got the call at the last minute to stage the tournament. So they've put a green set indoor hard court down. So we're going to have to guess how quick that's going to be. That could be any pace they want. There is slight altitude here at 550 meters, so it can be tough for the players to control the ball, and it does tend to make the conditions perhaps a bit quicker than they normally would be. 42% of the matches here are featured a tiebreak, and last year the serve and volleying Marc-Andre Huesler won it last year. The number one seeds only won this event twice in the 7 editions that it's been on tour. As I said, it averages 31% in underdogs, but last year, interestingly, there were over 50% underdog winners here last year. So that comes back to the point you were making earlier on about the favourites obviously struggling this last week of the season. So as far as the outright's concerned, looking at the top, I mean, you mentioned Jack Draper a minute ago. He's only just, like about half an hour ago, finished playing the final in Bergamo. He's played a 3-set final there. against David Goffin. He won it, I think. Let's have a look. I think he won it. Yeah, he won it 2-1. But he's literally just got off court. I know it's not a million miles to Sofia, but he's played a long week, and I'll talk about him a little bit more in a minute. I certainly wouldn't trust him to go back-to-back finals, Draper. Certainly not at this stage of the season. He's
and his body, he's unfit. He's not fit, is he? His body breaks down more than anybody.
He does. He's certainly got big problems with his physicality. I'd be terrified if I backed him at 6-1 to win this tournament. It does look quite a decent opportunity for Jan-Lennard Struff, this. However, he's again about 6-7-1, and he's not won a single title at main level in the 10 years that he's been playing at this level. So, and he's only won 1 of 6 matches since his latest comeback from injury. So it looks a good opportunity for him, but would you back him at sort of 6-7-1? I'm not sure that I could. So I've taken a little look at the bottom half of the draw. Fuchsovic is another one that's you'd be terrified about him this stage of the season. He always breaks down. It's like a finely tuned racehorse. There's always some sort of niggle going on there. There's always a problem. I wouldn't trust him this stage of the season. Kekmanovic withdrew from the doubles last week with a wrist injury. Baez, you wouldn't have thought indoor hard, really. So Mannarino, yeah, again, but would you take him at like 5-6-1? Not really. So I think this could be a chance for Pavel Kotov. I mean, he played some fabulous attacking tennis in Stockholm a few weeks ago. 92% holds of serve that week. Kotov came through all the way from qualifying to within a couple of points of winning the title. Service points won and return points won, total of 105 that week. And that was against top class opposition. Monfils, Kekmanovic, Griekspoor, Sonego, beat all those guys and recorded those numbers. He's had time off now to recover since then and prepare for this. So if he reproduces that form, you're getting about 12-1 or thereabouts on Kotov. I think each way he's the one to be on, but it's a very, very difficult draw.
Kotov is 12-1. Remember, Bet Rivers running only sports books across America to offer each way betting, which means half of your bet will be on the place to make the final if it's 6-1, and the other half will be on him to win it. So it'll be 2 wagers effectively, one on the winner market at 12-1 and one to make the final at 6-1. And given the way he played, like you said, Sean, he gets much better opposition. This bit of form, bit of incentive to win a tournament. Kotov at 12-1 is the pick for us here. Small lean each way. We have 2 matches, and one of them we're going to talk about is Jack Draper. We just mentioned him there. His physicality. He's just won a tournament hours ago. Going to travel to Sofia into Bulgaria, where he plays Marterer, big serve in German. Is he German, Marty? Is he German?
Marterer, yes, German. Yeah, he's just been playing as well.
Yeah,
he just finished the final today.
All right, so he's the two players in form. Draper's minus 286, Martier's plus 220. The handicap here on the spread is 3.5. Draper giving up 3.5, which does seem quite generous when you consider both very big servers. And the total games are 22.5. And if you were going to ask me which I'll go over under, I've got to go over those at 22.5, given the way these 2 players serve and if it's a quick court. They met once before, I think, in a challenger last year. And it was an easy win for Draper, 6-4, 6-2. Would it be so easy this time around, Sean?
Wouldn't have thought so. I mean, it's a very, very quick turnaround for both these guys. I wouldn't trust fitness of Draper. I just think he's really, really short in price, Draper. Marter's been playing some really, really good tennis, played really well in Antwerp the other week, a tournament I was at. Last time he met Marterer, he was priced up as slight underdog, actually, was Jack Draper. And he did win it in straight sets, but he was a slight underdog. Now he's a roughly minus $3 favorite after all that tennis. He's also won 5 win-loss at main level against fellow left-handers, Draper. If we look at what Marterer has done in his last 10 matches, not including today, he's held serve 97% of the time, Marterer, winning 83% of his first serve points and actually 65% on his second serve, hitting 1 ace per game. Given the way these 2 guys serve, I took a bet earlier on. I hope the price is still similar. Over 10.5 games in set 1 with Bet Rivers was plus 210. That for me is a great bet. That's probably the bet of the week as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, brilliant bet. Both in form, both massive servers on quick conditions. We expect it to be quick conditions. Plus 210, bigger than 2-1, over 10.5. Tiebreak must be a big price, Sean, as well. Probably 4s, I would guess.
Yeah, it was roughly plus 300 or so, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a lovely price. And that also brings in sort of my lean for the over the totals at 22.5. So in that match, Marterer against Draper, where all our attention is focused on the game markets and overs on the game markets. The final match, this one, I didn't know much about this one, but when you put it down on the list, I had a little bit of digging and I looked at it and I think I know where you're going to go here. And I was quite excited when I saw it because I thought to myself, this is a strange game. I don't really know much about this player. But when I looked at it, I thought this is quite interesting. Marozsan up against Piros. They're both Hungarian players and they're playing in Bulgaria. So, and you look at it, they're identical in age. They would have probably played a lot of tennis together. Marozsan is obviously broken onto the ATP Tour scene because he beat Carlos Alcaraz in Rome. His performances have been great. His highest ranking he's ever been, but he's his highest career ranking currently. But he's had a long season and he's up against Piros, who has got nothing to lose coming in this tournament. The head-to-head, 3-1 to Piros, which is a huge advantage against somebody he's grew up with. All on clay, I have you in mind, though.
I've got 3-0. Where's the other one you've got there?
It must have been a challenger. It's 3-1. I think Marozsan. Well, we'll go with your one because I think we're going to go with the same case. Let's go 3-0. Let's just say 3-0. Plus 132 Piros, minus 165 Marozsan. 2.5 start for Piros, and the total is 22.5. I didn't have any interest in this game. I thought I'm just going to skip through it. But when I looked at it, I got the Seeley juices flowing. Piros here at plus 132.
Yeah, Marozsan, I just think there's not much going for him at this price. He looked shattered in Antwerp when he squandered a load of chances to win in straight sets against Varillas. Then he played one match and withdrew from the second round in Vienna. That was after his big effort in Shanghai, and now he faces an opponent he's lost to, as far as my stats are concerned, on all three prior occasions. And it's an overwhelming head-to-head. The service points won and return points won totals, 116 to 84 in favour of Piros. I know some of them were played a couple of years ago, but one of them was this year. I know they're all on clay as well, but, you know, Marozsan is more than comfortable on clay. Plays most of his matches on clay, in fact. Piros made the quarterfinals indoors in Brest in his last tournament in France last week, so he's been playing reasonably well indoors. I just think on the head-to-head and the fact that Marozsan looked very, very tired to me last time I saw him, which was very, very recently. He couldn't possibly back him. My lean here is Piros. Yeah, he was around about plus 126, I think, earlier on.
He's got bigger. He's plus 132. You're not going to put him up as an official pick. Is this the lean?
I'm slightly concerned that some of these matches were a long time ago, but it's certainly an option. It's a very, very good option. I prefer the Draper bet, and I'm not keen on having too many bets this week. I don't want to go nuts on this final week.
I like the idea. I mean, I think the other part I like is the fact that they grew up together. The fact that they're probably the motivation for Piros to put one over his mate who's getting all the attention is a massive incentive for him. When the incentive for Marozsan, he's beaten Carlos Alcaraz, he's beaten the Wimbledon champion in Rome at a 1,000 event, and I think that's a huge incentive. So you might not put him up, Sean. But I'm going to put him up as a one-unit pick.
I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue because it's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. So plus 132 Piros. I'm going to put him up. It's very rare you get a bet from me on this show. It's always about Sean, but on this occasion, I had 3-1 the head-to-head. If Sean's got it 3-0, that even makes it stronger to me. So Piros to beat Marozsan plus 132 is a bet from me here. So there we have it.
I'm just going to quickly whip through a couple of more ones very, very quickly.
Certainly.
Very quickly. Rinky Hijikata's just flown 23 hours from Sydney to get to Sofia. There's no direct flight, by the way, so it's a layover. So that's something worth considering against the match against Purcell. Something that I just wanted to mention. And Rodionov I looked at as well against Kekmanovic, but Kekmanovic, as I said, that's based on the fact that Kekmanovic was injured last week and kind of pulled out of the doubles because Kekmanovic beat Rodionov very, very easily when they played on clay. Is he fit? That's maybe one to think about a Rodionov. And Albert Ramos has broken serve 9% of the time in his last 10 main level matches on indoor hard, winning just one of those matches with a terrible set of statistics. So Cabaj Baena there might be slight value, but he's lost 6 of his last 7 matches and looks absolutely shattered. So there you go. A few little nuggets, but very, very difficult this week.
Just one question before we go in. You're looking at the time, Sean. Are we okay for time? Or are we running?
We've got 1 minute 26 seconds.
Oh, I didn't know. Higata's 20s. What's the point? If he goes out in the first round, he's lost his flight money. Absolutely no point. Anyway, we've got 1 minute to wrap this up. Sean, thanks very much as always. We'll hopefully be back tomorrow. Look at some first round matches, draw dependent. I've got a bit of time before I fly back to London tomorrow. So hopefully I've extended the room, Sean. So we might as well pay the extra $60 late checkout to use the view again for tomorrow.
I was waiting for the fountain to start, but it hasn't yet.
Well, I think it's Sunday. I think it's starting late. So
okay.
hopefully tomorrow we'll schedule it when the fountains are going off. Thanks very much for watching. Remember the 4 ways to follow us on Betting Weekly Game Bet Match. You can download the podcast, Betting Weekly Game Bet Match, and we prefer podcast provider. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Betting Weekly Studios, and follow us on our Instagram account and our Twitter account @BecauseWeWin. They're the bets in Metz and Sofia. Head to the BetWithers website for all the specials and odds, and you can live stream the matches from there as well. Thanks for watching. We'll speak to you tomorrow, and catch you on tickets. Take care.